Hopefully it is streaming now in YouTube as well. So today's text that we are reading is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 13, Text 19. Pratikriyana yasyeha kutaschit karhichit prabho sayesha bhagavan kala sarvesham na samagataha. One more time. Pratikriyana yasyeha kutaschit karhichit prabho sayesha bhagavan kala sarvesham na samagataha. One more time. Pratikriyana yasyeha kutaschit karhichit prabho sayesha bhagavan kala sarvesham na samagataha. Pratikriya, remedial measure. Na, there is none. Yasya, of which. Iha, in this material world. Kutaschit, by any means. Karhichit, or by anyone. Prabho, O my Lord. Sa, that. Yesha, positively. Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. Kala, eternal time. Sarvesham, of all. Na, of us. Samagata, arrived. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. This frightful situation cannot be remedied by any person in this material world. My Lord, it is the Supreme Personality of Godhead as eternal time, Kala, that has approached us all. Purport. There is no superior power which can check the cruel hands of death. No one wants to die. However acute the source of bodily suffering may be. Even in the days of so-called scientific advancement of knowledge, there is no remedial measure, either for old age or for death. Old age is the notice of the arrival of death, served by cruel time, and no one can refuse to accept either summon calls or the supreme judgment of eternal time. This is explained before Dhritarashtra because he might ask Vidura to find out some remedial measure for imminent fearful situation, as he had ordered many times before. Before ordering, however, Vidura informed Dhritarashtra that there was no remedial measure by anyone or from any source in this material world. And because there is no such thing in this material world, death is identical with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as it is said by the Lord Himself in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10, text 34. Death cannot be checked by anyone or from any source within this material world. Hiranyakashipu wanted to be immortal and underwent a severe type of penance by which the whole universe trembled. And Brahma himself approached him to dissuade Hiranyakashipu from such a severe type of penance. Hiranyakashipu asked Brahma to award him the blessings of immortality, but Brahma said that he himself was subject to death, even in the topmost planet. So how could he award him the benediction of immortality? So there is death even in the topmost planet of this universe, and what to speak of other planets which are far, far inferior in quality to Brahmaloka, the residing planet of Brahma. Wherever there is influence of eternal time, there is this set of tribulations, namely birth, disease, old age, and death. All of them are invincible. So I will read the translation one more time. This frightful situation cannot be remedied by any person in this material world. My Lord, it is the Supreme Personality of Godhead as eternal time, Kala, that has approached us all. So in this text, two words, pratikriya and Bhagavan Kala. They are expanded by Prabhupada in this purport. The first paragraph expands Pratikriya, which is a remedial measure, basically saying there is no remedial measure. And another one is Bhagavan Kala, like Lord as the time energy approaching in the form of old age, death. So, so we will try to understand more about this verse. Yeah. So the context is the devotees have been speaking, Pratibhav Prabhu and Shatarupa Mataji, that Vidura came back after the pilgrimage, and he specifically came actually to save his brother, in the sense that he doesn't want Dhritarashtra die like an animal, means an informed death, whereas he wants his brother with so much compassion. He wants to take him out of the attachment of kingly and palatial life, and take him, request him to take him the spiritual path, at least at the end of the life, and he's requesting him. So that is the context. And interestingly, yesterday's purport shows that there is these discussions of Vidura speaking to Dhritarashtra. Specifically, the instruction is for Dhritarashtra, but the discussions are going on in an assembly hall. So everybody is listening, including Yudhishthira Maharaj and Pandavas, all the relatives. Everybody is listening to the message. But at some point, after generic instructions on the old age and death and what is the ultimate purpose of life, then Vidura actually speaks very, very strongly, really, really strong, to the extent going to telling like an animal, don't die like a dog, something. So very, very severe statements he makes in the private. So it's not very clear from which verse onwards Vidura speaks in private, and from which verse onwards he speaks public in the assembly. But certainly the message is clear that he's talking about the message is the frightful situation cannot be remedied. The frightful situation here is connecting the previous verse, which is about the death. So death is already approaching, and you were already afraid of it. Fear is already there. That's what Vidura is telling to Dhritarashtra. So, and it cannot be remedied by any person in this material world. So Prabhupada starts saying, there is no superior power which can check the cruel hands of death. So this is a very strong statement. And also it has been philosophically correct, in the sense there are many, many references how God comes in the form of death. So one reference is, in fact, Prabhupada mentions here Bhagavad Gita 10:34. So I will go there and see what it is. So 10:34, Mrityu sarva haraschaham udbhavascha bhavishyatam kirti shri vaksha narina smritir medha dhriti kshama. So here Prabhupada translates it as, I am all devouring death. Krishna is speaking to Arjuna. He's saying, I am all devouring death, and I am the generating principle of all that there is yet to be. Right? Among women, I am fame, fortune, speech, memory, intelligence, steadfastness, and patience. Okay. So Prabhupada explains this first line in the purport. As soon as a man is born, he dies at every moment. Thus, death is devouring every living entity at every moment. But the last stroke is called death itself. The death is Krishna. So here, this is what Prabhupada was mentioning there. As for future development, so this is about death, and I think the next is for the generating principle. As for future development, all living entities undergo 6 basic changes. They are born, they grow, they remain for some time, they reproduce, they dwindle, and finally they vanish. Of these changes, the first deliverance from the womb, and that is Krishna. So the initial starting point is also Krishna, and also the ending point, the death, is also Krishna. That's what Prabhupada is saying. The first generation is the beginning of all future activities. So we can see here that from Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is pointing that he comes in the form of death, right? Prabhupada further goes on, no one wants to die, however acute the source of however acute the source of bodily sufferings may be. Even in the days of so-called scientific advancement of knowledge, there is no remedial measure, either for old age or for death. And this is important philosophical aspect that the modern scientific approach of the world view, how the world came about or how the life came about, their claim, the modern scientific claim, is that it's a philosophical claim in that sense that everything comes from the matter. There is no life as such, and whatever experiences and things that we are all going through is basically transformation of chemical reactions, and we are just feeling the buzz of that chemical reactions as emotions, feelings, memories, and the experiences themselves, right? But actually there is no reality there. It's only just transformation of the chemicals, and everything is coming from the chemicals, and everything go back to chemicals. So there is no real concept of life in that sense, right? Everything is made up of chemicals. That is the modern scientific view. Of course, I'm presenting a very simplistic view. They may have so many other deeper meanings and things like that, but in a broader sense, that is the understanding. So, but we can easily understand if it's everything is only chemicals, then chemicals by themselves, the nature is they're dead. Then where is that concept? Nobody wants to die. So that's what Prabhupada is making here. No one wants to die. Intuitively, we don't want to die at all, right? We want to live as long as possible. So then where is that desire coming from, right? So that is one of the argument to refute that philosophical argument that everything is coming from the chemicals. So in fact, if we are all chemicals, in fact, our desire should be, I want to die, because chemicals, they're dead already. So where is the question of life? Where is the question of desire to live forever, right? So we don't want to die. So that gives an indication that there is something higher than the chemicals. So that's that indication. That worldview comes from Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, that we are not chemicals alone. We are more refined life, living entities, sentient entities who are animating these dead bodies, basically. Because of that life, we are present. Basically, it's Atma. That concept comes from Vedic worldview or Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavad Gita worldview. Sorry, Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita worldview. So, and because scientific worldview thinks that it's all chemicals, they always try to find some ways to come out of this problem of death. That's what remedial measure is basically how to avoid, or what is the way to come out of. Is there a pill, is there a medicine, or is there a treatment, or is there any other method that I can come out of this condition of old age and death? And Prabhupada says that old age is a notice, right? And it's a summon call. So everybody may not feel the urgency of death, but at least we can see we are growing. If not old age, at least we are growing, our age is passing. And certainly old age is a big reminder, or the call that yes, death is soon approaching. So that's why it is a notice, and a good notice. And obviously, I'm sure somebody would be working in scientific world how to stop the old age as well. Of course, there are some medicines, particularly the cosmetic industry. They try to come up with this, how to stop wrinkles, how to stop old age, things like that. But they're only very temporary, and at max they can make you look a little more beautiful than what you are. But really, they cannot stop old age. That's as far as I know, they could go. And as far as the death is concerned, I think there is some interesting. I was thinking, is there any attempts to stop death? So I could not find the research for stopping the death as such, but there is some research going on, in the sense that the subject is called cryonics. It's a branch of modern scientific advancement. So what they do is, in fact, this is a big industry. I didn't know until I went and researched about it. So I will just read, maybe we will have some idea what this talks about. Cryonics is the low temperature freezing and storage of human corpse or several dead, with speculative hope that resurrection means coming from death, may be possible in the future. Cryonics is regarded with skepticism with mainstream scientific community. It is generally viewed as pseudoscience, and its practice has been characterized as quackery, even though it is there here. But actually there are companies who are practicing, and cryonics procedures can begin only after clinical death, and cryonics patients are legally dead. Cryonics procedures may begin within minutes of death and use cryptoactants to prevent ice formation during cryopreservation. It is, however, not possible for a corpse to be reanimated after undergoing vitrification, as this causes damage to the brain, including neural networks. The first corpse to be frozen was that of Dr. James Bedford in 1967. As of 2014, about 250 dead bodies had been cryptopreserved in the United States, and 1,500 people had made arrangements for cryptopreservation for their corpses. What this company claims is that after death, they will preserve the body, and when the science advances to the extent that they can bring back the life, so then they will use this dead body to bring back people to the life, normal life, right? So that means there are some crazy people who are really thinking that we'll come back from death and we can still live, even though the technology is not available right now. So that's what Prabhupada talking about remedial measure. People may be thinking there is some remedy measure. If not now, in future, somebody will come up with that remedial measure. In fact, yeah, so I just wanted to give that background to bring this point as a focus, remedial measure. So in fact, Dhritarashtra was also thinking, or Vidura was anticipating Dhritarashtra might come up with some remedial measure, or he will ask, okay, tell me a shortcut, or how can I avoid this death? So Vidura is already anticipating this kind of, because Dhritarashtra already done this kind of remedial measures. Otherwise, he would have left the palace even before, after the war itself, but still he is taking shelter of the familial attachment. So then That's why Vidura informed Dhritarashtra that there was no remedial measure by anyone or from any source in this material world. Yeah. And because there is no such thing in this material world, death is identical with Supreme Personality of Godhead, as it is said by the Lord himself in Bhagavad Gita 10:34. This we have already read. So, because Krishna is so powerful and time is so powerful, nobody can stop the time. Like the English proverb, time and tide, wait for none. So as the time moves, time energy moves everything else, including our own transformations like old age, death, and nobody can stop that. So that is an important lesson. Basically, at the personal level, even I sometimes, many times, really don't think about death and all the activities that I do really doesn't focus on an important goal, because I will be thinking, okay, I'm living now, I might live for some more time. Let me take the real things seriously at some later point of time, right? But we can never say how long the life will go on like this. So that is the message. And moving on to the next paragraph, death cannot be checked by anyone or from any source within this material world. So Prabhupada explaining that remedial measure cannot be stopped, there is no remedial measure. It's further explanation here with an Vedic example where Bhagavatam explains about Hiranyakashipu's pastime, and Prabhupada explains here. Hiranyakashipu wanted to be immortal and underwent a severe type of penance by which the whole universe trembled. And Brahma himself approached him to dissuade Hiranyakashipu from such severe type of penance. Hiranyakashipu asked Brahma to award him the blessings of immortality. But Brahma said that he himself was subject to death even in the topmost planet. So how could he award him the benediction of immortality? So the story goes, Hiranyakashipu finds out that he cannot get the benediction of immortality, but based on his intelligence and logic, he comes up with certain restrictions under which he cannot die. And then he thinks that, okay, I will not die anymore. But still, the Lord comes as Lord Narasimha to protect his devotee Prahlad Maharaj in the form such a way, at the time and place and circumstances such a way that he meets all the restrictions what Brahma has promised to Hiranyakashipu, but still he kills, destroys Hiranyakashipu. So in that sense, nobody can stop death. So this kind of attempts, whatever we have seen previously, the modern attempts to preserve the body. By the way, I think it costs even right now, the company charges $250,000 per one body. I was reading about it, went to the company's website, actually what they do. So basically they preserve the bodies, hopefully thinking that the somebody will invent life or immortality. So same thing like Hiranyakashipu, right? So that's, he has that idea already that there is something called immortality and I can live forever. So there is death even in the topmost planet of this universe, and what to speak of other planets which are far, far inferior in quality to Brahmaloka. So Brahma is saying here, I will also die, albeit after long, long time, right? After 1000 yuga cycles, he has to no, I think I'm getting confused. After 100,000 cycles, only one day will be lost. Like that, he has 100 days, and sorry, 100 years he lives. Brahma's life is very, very long. The residing and Brahma's planet stays as long as Brahma lives, right? So even after that long time, but still he has to undergo the death. So wherever there is influence of time, so because material world has the influence of time, Brahma's planet also is part of the material world. It is not spiritual world. Even heavenly planets, the so-called heavenly planets that we talk about, they're all in the material world. And the influence of time is not there only in the spiritual world. Where there is influence of eternal world, which is material world where we are living, there is this set of tribulations, namely birth, disease, old age, and death, and all of them are invincible. So this word is very interesting, invincible. Invincible means there is no defeat. Like it's kind of word ajita. No, nobody can conquer, right? Invincible. So it's as if here birth, disease, old age, and death are invincible, right? So it's very important to understand what is it, this these transformations of the body and why they are invincible and why they're so important for my life, right? So again, knowing this, we will be better prepared for our life. So that is why, in fact, in the chapter 13, chapter 13, text 8 to 12, Krishna talks about items of knowledge, right? So in that, one of the key thing he mentions is, let me see. Yeah, one of the items of knowledge, we'll be wondering why Krishna mentions here items of knowledge. So that is Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi Dukkha Doshanu Darshanam. Means, and Prabhupada translates it as like seeing the evils here. Yeah, Janma, birth, Mrityu, death, Jara, old age, Vyadi and disease, Dukkha of the distress, Dosha, the fault, Anudarshanam, observing. So to know that, right? So, and the translation goes, the perception of evil, the perception of the evil of birth, death, old age, and disease. So in fact, there's an item of knowledge, like seeing death, disease, and all these transformations will happen. It is inevitable and we will lose everything. And we have to better prepared for our life. So that aspects of sense, that intuition is the part of the knowledge, right? So, and Krishna makes it a point to mention here, out of all the items of knowledge, that's part of the item of knowledge. And Prabhupada's purport on this particular one, I will read that paragraph. One should try to understand the distress of accepting birth, death, old age, and disease. There are descriptions in the various Vedic literatures of birth. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, the world of the unborn, the child's stay in the womb of the mother is suffering, its suffering, etc., are all very graphically described. It should be thoroughly understood that birth is distressful. Because we forget how much distress we have suffered within the womb of the mother, we do not make any solution to the repetition of birth and death. Similarly, at the time of death, there are all kinds of sufferings, and there are also mentioned in the authoritative scriptures. These should be discussed. And as far as disease and old age are concerned, everyone gets practical experience. No one wants to be deceased and no one wants to become old, but there is no avoiding these unless we have a pessimistic view of this material life. This is very important here. Pessimistic view of this material life, considering the distress of birth, death, and old age and disease, there is no impetus for our making the advancement in spiritual life. So this is the connection Prabhupada is making. So the knowing the importance of death in a pessimistic understanding that there is no hope, like keeping no hope for somebody will have some remedial measure in future. So we should not have that kind of hopes. And with a pessimistic view on this aspect, when you see that, then that becomes an impetus. Impetus means driving factor. So the fear of these four, it may not be the best driving factor, but it's the it's like a net. The best driving factor for devotional service is we want to please the Lord, but everybody may not be there at that advanced level. So what is the basic minimum thing? Minimum thing is, okay, I'm going to die, and I don't want to go through this again and again, this suffering. So at least let me find out that method with which I don't want to die. So that is the impetus for making spiritual advancement. So Prabhupada is making that. We'll go back to the today's text. So again, reading Prabhupada's word. Wherever there is influence of eternal time, there is this set of tribulations, namely birth, disease, old age, and death, and all of them are invisible. We can certainly see that we are under the influence of time, and we are going through all these transformations already. We have taken birth, we are already growing, we are becoming old, and we are certainly subjected to diseases, certainly including corona virus, right? And eventually we will see that we are going to death also, right? And we have to understand that they are invincible, and that should become a positive impetus to practice spiritual life. In fact, this is the message that Vidura wanted to give to Dhritarashtra, that you are still sitting, you are in old age, and all your symptoms of death are clearly here. Old age is already here, and you are already fearful of death. Still, you are sitting here. Please get out. That is the message that Vidura is trying to request his brother with compassion, obviously. So, so today I will conclude. Okay, and there is another reference I forgot to mention about death in the 11th chapter. Yeah, Krishna speaks when he shows Mahakala Rupa, or universal form, as the time factor who is destroying everything. Krishna says here, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "Time I am, the great destroyer of the worlds, and I have come here to destroy all people." So Krishna is declaring directly here, actually, in the form of universal form. In his universal form as time, Mahakala Rupa, he is destroying. With the exception of you, the Pandavas, all the soldiers here on the both sides will be slain. Of course, Krishna is speaking here with specific to that war situation. But it is, in general also, it is true. Eventually, everyone has to die. And so with that, I think covered all the points that I wanted to cover. So I will make a quick summary that Dhritarashtra is already under a fearful situation, and he is seeing the symptoms of old age, and death is imminent. And Vidura is trying to request him, saying that this frightful situation cannot be remedied. There is no other way you can avoid this death. Don't even think of it. Don't have any optimistic view about that life. Make sure that you have a right knowledge that they are going to come, and have a pessimistic view, like Prabhupada is saying, and please get out of the house. So that is the message. And he's also saying why it is you cannot have remedial measure, because the time is the energy of the Lord, and nobody can stop it. And under the influence of time, all these transformations will take place, and these transformations are also invincible, including birth, disease, old age, and death, and all of them are invincible. So don't think, don't have a second thought. Please start your spiritual journey. So it's a very strong statements from Vidura. Not strong yet, actually. Later on verses, they're really, really strong. Still, this looks a little more generic way of putting it. That so with that, I want to conclude. And if any of devotees have some comments, corrections, or any points to be adding, please go ahead. Thank you very much for this opportunity again to read this section from Srimad Bhagavatam. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Vrndavana Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj.
Please accept my humble obeisances, Prabhu.
Yes. Prabhuji, it was really a wonderful class, so you took it so methodically, what is death and how, the modern, what do you say, the marketplace, we try to sell death also with the promise that you'll get life back. And obviously, whoever is buying that, they think they can come back to the same body, and live and all these things. And the other part is, even like we are talking about Dhritarashtra in his old age, and we are also, even yesterday the same thing came up. One thing that I've noticed is, Prabhuji, or it's an observation I made, at the time of, it said that, Lord Krishna leaves his body 36 years after the war, and Krishna lived for 126 years. So at the point of Kurukshetra war, I think Arjuna and Krishna, who were almost of the same age, were in their 80s. And the Pandavas were also around the same age. So you consider Dhritarashtra, Bhishma, and all these people, they are at least 20 years older to them. So nobody is young actually at that point of time, and in spite of that, Dhritarashtra still thinks, he wants to stay and he wants to enjoy, whereas Pandavas are already in this stage where, we are renounced and we want to, do what we have to do. We have to ensure that, there is a higher like Parikshit who will take over this land and rule it according to dharma. So there's, that's a huge difference. We probably don't realize when we are reading the scriptures, but I just want to draw your notice to that.
Yeah, thank you very much, Prabhu, bringing that point. And I just remembered, I heard previously that actually Dhritarashtra, the name itself, it shows that he's very attached to the state or the property or the estate, right? Very strongly, actually. So, and it maybe represents in all of us that nature of hanging on to the matter or hanging on to the stuff that we have. Okay, this will protect me, or this I will enjoy. Right? So that tendency is a Dhritarashtra tendency, basically. Right?
Nice,
so, and Dhritarashtra is epitome of that tendency, and he wants to keep on holding on to it. Right? So wherever that shelter comes from, including the shelter of enemy, in this case, in a sense, even though Yudhishthira is treating him properly, but actually for Dhritarashtra, Pandavas are kind of enemies. He's still holding on to enemies. Still, he wants to hold on to the kingdom. Yes, this is my kingdom, right? So that is.
Yeah, Prabhuji. Yeah, Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. This is Jayant. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada.
Please
How are
accept
you
my
doing,
humble
Prabhu?
obeisances, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Great lecture. I just have, I want to, I know this is a heavy topic and, you're going pretty fast. I don't have a question. I just want to make the moment light, if you don't mind.
Sure, Prabhu.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. These 3 days, the topics have been fairly at least heavy for me to absorb. What is the stock price of that company, Prabhu? I think it's going to soar.
There are few companies. There are already competitors. It's not one company. There is a few United States companies and there is some Russian company. Again, all of them claim the same similar things. Yeah, maybe I don't have right away.
No,
With me.
I just
Yeah.
wanted to, yeah, mine was not a question. Thank you. Thank you very much. I just wanted to throw a light moment because, topics are pretty heavy. Thanks.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dhanurvana.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisances.
We remember a story that a businessman, what he does, even at the time of death. We actually yesterday you see that Yaksha's first question, everybody is dying. That's the most wonderful thing in going on in the world, but still we don't realize. So I was thinking about that story that a person goes to Kashi and then everybody is seeing that, dead bodies are going, into the Ganges. People are carrying the dead bodies all over, right? In the Varanasi. But businessman also goes there and see, oh my God, what a place is this? People are kind of, it's getting used to, people are every day getting used to people are dying. So they don't. So what happens every day, if you see, you'll get used to it. Yeah, but they don't understand that I am dying, right? So, but the businessman goes there and he says, wow, this is an excellent place. I can make a lot of money from here. So I can make a firewood business here. So that's what it is, right? So in spite of knowing how the Mahamaya covers our consciousness, and see even if I'm dying, right? If somebody is dying, you are like, the sheep, it's already in the line in the butcher shop, but still it finds to eat something. That's what I understand, right? So it's like that. We as a two-legged transcendental to us, or to transcendental to the animals. In that way, we have a different body, but we are still making plans. In spite that death comes in. Similarly, it is an individual as a businessman. Now you mentioned there is a corporate world who are thinking of making money, to see whether we can get that. How foolish. That's what I understand, and how the Mahamaya covers our consciousness and makes more full and full and full, right? And when the corporate companies are also making people making fools, I don't really, it's very difficult to understand. But as long as we, anyway, we, in spite of everything we know, but we don't practice seriously. That's another thing anyway.
Yeah.
So, but it's a reminder, everyday reminder for us to be in the class and to understand this. Otherwise, even our consciousness also will go down, and we'll think about that enjoyment rather than, when the moment you are all describing all this, I was thinking, we know that we come on, we are born in this world, we go anyway, but still we need big bungalows. This that doesn't mean we should not enjoy. So, what's your comment on that, Prabhu? Everybody knows that, right? It's going to die. But do we think that everybody is looking at no? Still, we make plans. We still make a nice house. We'll still happy family. But I don't think anybody can do okay. Even though he's realized he's going to die, that doesn't mean that he will not plan anything in his life.
Yeah.
So, what is your comment on that?
I'm only remembering. First, I will talk about the industries that you are talking about, Prabhu. Certainly, the magnitude of this death industry or saving the dead bodies is very, very small compared to other industries. But certainly, the old age industry or the beauty, cosmetics and fashion industry, it's very, very big, really big. Maybe it's as big as any other main regular businesses or finance or beverages, right? So it's very, very big. That means they want to sell, and modern science wants to make everything as an utilitarian, right? So people are worried about old age. Okay, we will make a business out of it. Like the businessman that you are talking about in Kasi, everybody is dying, they need firewood. So I'll make business of firewood. Okay, I'll become rich. So that aspect that I just wanted to tell. And then coming to the next aspect, that indirectly the answer is already there, in the sense this discussion of Vidura is happening in the assembly hall, right? Everybody is there, and the Yudhishthira is there, Dhritarashtra is there, and Prabhupada mentions the instructions are specifically meant to Dhritarashtra, but they're also applicable to everyone, right? Because even Yudhishthira Maharaj is also becoming old, but Vidura was not so much worried about. In fact, Burijana Prabhu mentions this comment in his explanation. Vidura was not even worried to specifically mention it to Yudhishthira Maharaj. Even though Yudhishthira Maharaj is a king, and in fact, in the last verse, we have seen he has now achieved everything. He is peaceful now. He is living a happy life, so to say, right? In a big, big palace with a lot of wealth and with his cooperation with the brothers. All this is happening. Why Vidura is not so concerned about Maharaj Yudhishthira? Because he knows that Maharaj Yudhishthira is already a devotee of the Lord. He already knows about it, like you were talking about. We already know in a sense. And Yudhishthira Maharaj knows to the extent, as the Bhagavad Gita talks about the knowledge aspect, he has a clear knowledge, and he uses that as an impetus to drive all his decisions in his life. So there is no lack of, there's never a slack in his activities, or a lack in his activities. Like sometimes conditioned souls, especially when things are going good, maybe I will not focus so much on the positive aspects of life. So at that point, when I think of the worst situation, then it will keep me on the track, right? So the message is not to have good life. The message is to keep this aspect of knowledge, the item of knowledge, as in the background, so that we don't slacken in our ultimate purpose in the life. So that is the reason Vidura specifically addresses, even though he's speaking in the assembly, he specifically this meant for Dhritarashtra, who was attached and who didn't understand this aspect of knowledge. But even though it's a generic instruction, I hope it makes sense, Prabhu.
Yeah, because there is nobody can stop this birth and death, and anyway, and as long as we are there, we can do whatever we are supposed to do. But on the back of our mind, we need to have, as Krishna is our center, and prioritize. Even though we have everything, we need to prioritize on what is in future, as a life, not for a body, as a life. So that's the I think there is no other go we can do, right? Nobody can stop anything. We have to keep going anyway in our lives.
Yeah.
So, and this is happening life after life. So in that way, if you really see, nobody can stop anything. Even if not live there, they will also say, I cannot enjoy in this life. Okay, let me enjoy in the other life. Right.
Yes. Thank you very much, Prabhu. So we're almost 8 now. So with that, we will stop here. Thank you very much, devotees, for joining. Please pray for me so that this item of knowledge, the 4 items of knowledge, becomes part of me, and I will realize more and becomes a real good backup plan and impetus for my devotional service. Thank you very much. Vancha kalpatarubhyasya कृपासिन्धुभ्यो पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। हरे कृष्ण।
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Very nice.
हरे कृष्ण।